We're going to take a look at transitions inside of Premiere. I'll start by addressing clip number 1 again, selecting it, and I want to put the playback head at the end of that clip. I can drag and snap or shift and drag and snap, or if I chose to, if my clip was in the beginning somewhere, I could hit the down arrow to put it at the very edge. I want to edit 2 seconds of the clip number 1 and essentially hide it. I'm going to go to my time code in the corner and I'll subtract the 9 seconds by putting in 7. I'll put 700, and now I'm going to either put my cursor over the edge and drag and hit the shift key and snap, or I can double click on it, and in the source window I can click on the close bracket. This will require me now to click between 1 and 2, right click, click on ripple delete. Now let's take 1 second off of clip number 2 at the beginning. I've got my playback head where I want it, so I'll double click on Carnival 2 and now it appears in the source window. I'll go ahead and I will forward my 2 second to 3, and I'll click on the open bracket, selecting the gap in the timeline between the two. I'll right click and choose ripple delete. You'll see in a moment why I've done this. We need to illustrate the two things that happen when we use transitions. I'm going to zoom in as if I were in After Effects by using the plus or minus on the keyboard. Where the playback head resides is the center of where we zoom. We can also move our timeline with the slider bar at the bottom. I'm going to go to the Effects tab, and in the very last folder is Video Transitions. I'm going to open it up. I'll open up the standard dissolves, and I'll choose Additive Dissolve. I'll drag it down over that intersection where the playback head is. You'll immediately see an icon that says Additive Dissolve. Now I want to zoom in and make this thicker as well, so I'll select the clip, either one, and I'll hit Shift plus on the keyboard, and it will open it up showing me my imagery and also showing me the transition a little bit more clearly. Now I can change the time by itself. If I double click, the transition duration window will come up. I can also drag the transition back and forth to favor one clip more than the other. If I go to the Effects tab now in the source window, there's the transition with a few more options. I can do the same thing I did in the timeline by moving how they interact with each other. And if my CPU permits it, I can show actual source to see what the clips look like. I'll drag through, and you can see there's a bright whitish transition on my clips. Now we're going to add another clip and another transition. I'm going to put the playback head at the end of our second clip. I can drag and hold the shift and snap, or I can put the playback head anywhere in the timeline, and if I keep hitting the down arrow, eventually it will take me to the end of the clip. I'm going to put clip number 3 in by selecting in the project window. Now I've selected in the project window, and I'm going to double click on it, and it puts it into the source window. And with my playback head at the end of clip number 2, I can now left mouse, click on clip number 3 in the source window and drag it into the project window. Now make sure Project Carnival 1 is selected, otherwise you won't have this option. So that's the equivalent of the comp window in After Effects, and that needs to be selected. None of the other files that might appear inside the program window. I'll left mouse click and drag, and you'll see that I can put it in after the previous clip by dragging it to the right hand side and letting go. And now I can see that my clip is in my timeline. I'm going to zoom back on it, and I'm going to drag this down into the proper track. The reason it went in the top track is because V2 is selected, I'm going to click on V1, and that would make any of the clips I drag in fall only in V1. Now with this, we're going to put a transition between 3 and 2. Because I'm at the end of the timeline, I'm going to use the up arrow to go to the intersection of 2 and 3. Now I'm going to go to my transitions, and I'll choose the cross dissolve, and I'll drag it over those 2 clips. Now you'll get a message, and it says insufficient media, the transition will not contain repeated frames. And all that means that if we didn't edit the out point of 2 and the in point of 3, there's no hidden video that would be the transition movement. All it means is that it's going to sample the last frame of 2 and the first frame of 3 for the transition area. So it really doesn't make much of a difference. So now if I drag through, you can see that video clip 2 is static during the transition. I'll hit Command S to save. You'll notice that is an audio track in our timeline. And this track has no audio in it, so with the clip selected, I'll right click and choose Unlink, and then I'll throw that out by simply deleting it. Now we'll add video clip number 4. And I want to have the transition, and I'd like live video between the 2 of them. So I'm going to select 3, I hit the down arrow. Looking at my time code, I can see that I'm at roughly 17 seconds. So I'll put 1500 in to subtract 2 seconds. And then if I wanted to, I could hit C on the keyboard, and that will give me the razor blade tool, and I can click on it, select the piece I don't want, and hit delete. Now the equivalent of that, because it's non-destructive, I could put my cursor over the end and start to drag it towards the playback head and hold the shift key to snap. That's another way to edit it. So just like all the other Adobe products, there is more than one way to create a certain function. Once I've got 2 seconds hidden away, I'll double click on video 4, and in the source window, I'll go ahead and edit the in point 2 seconds by clicking in the time code and putting in 200 and hitting return. I'll click on the open bracket, and now selecting Program Carnival, I'll left mouse drag the clip from the source window over to Insert After. And now we've got edited video on both ends of these adjoining video clips. I'll get rid of the audio clip that is dead by right-clicking on the clip and choosing Unlink, and then I'll delete it. I'll put my playback head between video 3 and 4 by hitting the up arrow in this instance, and now I'll drag a transition in between the 2 of them. And if I chose to, I could double click, increase the time there, or I could go to my effects channel and edit it there. We'll now introduce the last clip, Carnival 5, to the end of our timeline, and we'll use another technique to put a fade in, fade out on them. I'll click and drag Carnival clip 5, and I'll put it in the timeline next to 4. Once again, I'll get rid of the audio file by right-clicking and choosing Unlink, selecting the audio and delete. Now if I wanted to, for any reason, I could click and drag this up into clip number 2. I'm going to put a fade out on 4 and a fade in on 5 using a pen tool as we're accustomed to in After Effects perhaps. Now I'm going to the wrench inside the timeline for all the different features of the timeline. I want to make sure that Show Video Keyframe is chosen. And if it is, you'll see that the clips, when you hit Shift plus on the keyboard to open up the width of these, you'll see a line about 1/4 of the way down on all the clips. I'm going to put my playback head so that it is 2 seconds in from the video file 4. I'll select the clip, I'll hit the down arrow, and I'll subtract 2 seconds from the 20, 1800, and I'll hit P on the keyboard, and you'll see it gives us a pen tool. I'll click to put the first keyframe on that line, and then I'll click on the very end, holding the left mouse down. I'll drag it down. I'll do the same thing for 5 by selecting the clip. Now, if I use the up and down arrow now, I'm going to the end of clip number 4. If I continue to hit the down arrow, nothing happens. And that's because video 1 is selected. If I wanted to navigate clips in another video track, that track has to be selected. So if I were to select track 2, and now when I hit the down arrow, it takes me to the end of that clip. So you have to be careful if you're using these key quicks. Just make sure you have the right track activated so that you get what you want, essentially. I'll put my playback head now at the end of video 4, and now I'm going to move 2 seconds in on video clip number 5, and I'll add 2 seconds to 20, and I'll hit P on the keyboard. I'll put my first keyframe in at that point. Going back to the beginning, I'll click on the beginning and drag, click and drag down to the bottom of the clip. And now I've made it dissolve in and out.